Hey guys, this is V. This is for Business 639 with Dr. Zeka. I'm talking about today is AI consulting, especially for the Dodgy and Greeks projects. And the question here is, the future is here. Are we ready? So with that, I'll highlight. We will talk about the overview of the AI system and how is that pertain to our, like our business, right? And then also we want to talk about the problems that we need to be solving, the good, the best, and what is the ethicality and where do we base our decision from. And with that, there are some bias with the AI system, and how do we combat these bias? Right. The overview is the AI system have a big impact on how we conduct business. Why? They can analyze data and bring the speed in actually gathering information, transform and interpret the data at a blinding speed, giving the result that we need, whether it's to analyzing our own trend or the customer trends and or business trend that can use to aligning our business with get the overall market, right? But because of these algorithms, because of the pattern and the data that's selected, and usually parameters set by human, there are some biases. And with the previous data from our history, also a bias built within that as well. So there might be a chance that it can perpetuate the injustice, creating unethical application of previous pattern toward our new future. And we see a lot of that when it deals with customer facial recognitions, hiring, balancing workflow, etc. All right, selecting the right uh, business clients, etc., etc. Right. So is our problem to solve? There is the machine learning problem that actually help us identify, recognize, training data set. Ideal to recognize and grab possible trend that we might not have predicted in the past. We want to talking about the bias avoidance. Okay, what are the biases that we need to watch out if we do apply our computer system in an AI setup, right? So that we minimize that when we apply the system to our, overall business and how we conduct our business. Ethicality, what do we have to watch for? How can we balance it? How can we make ourselves, easier and more adapting and more ethical sound, right? We want to be a culture of inclusive and not exclusive. The cost. How much do we actually talking about when applying this AI system when we apply it badly or incorrectly? What does it cost us if we don't apply anything at all, right? A lot of business will apply that and then we'll be behind. And what is that cost of that? So we do want to first is to weigh the pros and cons of AI system. Are we really ready for it? Right? Sometimes technology are advancing beyond our ethical legality that can follow it. You know, we first want to understand the technology. What does it do? Right? What's the limitation? What are the parameter? Who is running the parameter? Which company we're really looking forward to be partnership when we apply this business, right? What are the stand in the technology? Okay. So what are the goods of these AI systems? Machine learning. It builds a neural network so that it can do analysis statistical ways and reveal the hidden insight, such as, what kind of business degree, what kind of pattern that we see in our future candidate that we can hire that boosts our competency of our hiring, retention rate, lower training costs, and people are generally happier, right? These are the data, if we think about it, it's very hard to do. But when we recognize like the time, uh, business background, data background, ethnicity, race, etc. How is all of this, when we put together, we create a group of people who have, diversity, high retention rate, high productivity. These are some of the the machine learning that we need to crunching these data together and able to give the right information that we need. Natural language processing. So, filtering, social media. How do we find the right client? How do we find things that would keep trending? How can we apply our marketing trend to match of the great business, right? We also talk deep learning. So when these machines are keep, performing, analyzing, how can they improve from these data? So we can layer and layer up and layer up so that way we can process how our business should be working, and from then on it's also recognized more than just words. It's speech and facial recognition. These are some of the process in the work, and the amount of depth that it can go is it's just too much to really discuss in just one presentation. The other good is the speed, accuracy, and depth of this data. It depends on the time that you allow to this data and the investment in the parameter that is set. It actually can crunch it due to the blinding speed, the amount of data that it can do, the accuracy in it can do, and you can even layer up to verify the accuracy of such calculation, of such insight, of such parameter, right? The depth can also see like what's the layer of time limit, amount of people who are watching or seeing your product. For example, Target applying such thing to kind of study what is people eyesight, where do they linger on, and from then on they can actually deliver. Okay, well, when people are looking at baby stuff, they also look at bottle, they can look at this. So they group these stuff together, they're able to punch out a better number sales at the end of the quarters, for example. So what are the bads? The unknown unknowns. Unknown unknowns are things that we don't know that we don't know. It's data process, different layer. The consequences of these process are not known. We don't set up parameter for it. Even if we do, it might arise from the thing that we selected for. It's called the narrow vision, that we can blindly see only just what we saw and nothing else, right? Also, with these AI systems, we also base it on imperfect processes. So these processes are come up by human, made up by human, run from a data set that's probably set up parameter-wise by human, and sometimes tested by these imperfect data sets. So technically, we don't have something that we can, let's say, run it by or make imperfection for. So now it still is an imperfect process every time we implement it. We take a risk of running a very powerful machine on something not tested and proven. It also, we talk about speech recognition or facial recognition, it doesn't solve our problem of social context. There's a lot of talking about portability trap, which means some data set was made in Kentucky and trying to apply into Louisiana. Things like that, it's just kind of out of whack. Their speech patterns are different, human interactions are different. So using the data set, you will leave out a lot of possibility and opportunity loss when we're selecting clients or when we're selecting candidates for a perfect job, for example. So ethicality, because hiring process is providing opportunity, there is some ethicality that when selecting, let's say, lighter skin people, they actually want to be successful. However, as we know, that's an implemented bias because of history of, racial inequality building into the culture, etc. And selecting these things, sometimes the parameters are skewed towards people with higher education or such and such, and which is favor looks more favorably toward gender and racial inequality. For example, Amazon didn't realize that, but they're selecting selection process that was done by AI was actually excluding women and excluding especially managerial position for women. Things like that happen for a while until discovered, right? It's also talk about risk assessment. It's like, does equal race have equal opportunity, or equal opportunity is provided to everyone? So the cause and the result, which one? And also they're talking about AI systems, talking about skin recognitions. Some of the systems are not perfect. So what happened to them is that they've been selecting, they don't recognize tone as well as we think they do. And in that way, there's a lot of exclusions, in especially in a crime and justice department, for example. So some of this rolled out have been disastrously skewed or biased. So this is the thing that we just have to watch out and use and implement with careful and cautious, right? Cautious. So what I do read out of all our projects is that there are such a thing called artificial intelligence ethics and society conference. They do run composable bias and fairness rating system for all these AI services, and using that is a good base to evaluate what is our company that's rolling out it correctly. And thank you so much for listening to me. So we possibly do not. I mean, it depends on the system, right? So to answer these questions, our question back is, what do we use it for? How can we implement an AI system to make our company doing what we do better, right? If it's selecting, clientele. Now, okay, so what are we basing it off? Do we base it on the market as a whole, or do we base it on how to improve our relationship with our past client or the missed opportunity? So these are some of the things that we can evaluate and we can build upon using the AI by collecting informations and what kind of potential benefit that could come out of these positive negotiation too. With that, I'll leave you with this reference, and thank you so much, and have a great day.